Good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is Monday, February 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved as distributed. Approval of the minutes, which begin on page 5 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
A second?
Second.
Any revisions or additions to the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes as distributed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Next up on the agenda is visitors' comments. First, are there any visitors who'd like to comment on any agenda item? Seeing none. General visitor comments on any item whatsoever? None. We will move on to approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins on page 9 of the packet and concludes with the resolution on page 26. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments on or questions about the consent agenda? Evelyn?
I actually have a question. Todd and I visited a little earlier, but I was curious about the computer licensing setup and the decision to go with the Microsoft upgrades and how those might differ from other decisions. So Todd, if you could explain
Sure.
what you explained to me a little earlier.
You bet. So we really at kind of a fork in the road to some extent, in that we are at a place with our current Exchange server and our current Exchange software, which supports lots of things, but what council members might primarily see, and certainly the primary use of staff among other uses, is it handles all of your calendar and email activities. And so we're really at a stage where the current Exchange software that we had needs to be upgraded. It will no longer be supported. With that upgrade comes significantly more need for speed and storage, which our 12-year-old server cannot support well at all. And so we're faced with getting new licensing and adding an additional server, and the cost estimate on that is about $29,000 to make all of that work together. Many places, thousands of places throughout the United States now, both in the private and public sector, are moving to cloud-based supported software. What you see here, Office 365, is cloud-based supported software. And what we see here is really the first year subscription. As you might have seen in the information, there's no turnover or push of the data cost for us as long as we do this now. In the long run, as many people might know, the Microsoft Exchange work will be something that's licensed, and there's ongoing fees every year going into the future. So it really gets to be a question of whether we want to support the hardware or not into the future. In addition, with this licensing, we receive extra products, which are handy for sure, some of which we use currently and have additional license fees for, some of which we don't. So an example of what we don't, but we use other things. So right now we use GoToMeeting. Likely into the future, as a part of this package, we'll switch to using Teams, Microsoft Teams. Another one that I'd like to bring up that I think is of greater value to us is Sharepoint. We currently don't have any software that really kind of emulates what Sharepoint provides in smoothing workflows and integration and communication activities. And so that's part of this as well. That's part of the standard package for many of the licenses that we will have in place. We're really buying 2 different levels of licenses as a part of this going forward. You know, we could look at other things like Google and others. We've been Microsoft for a long time, and so there's some challenges in converting to that. And we also have other software that integrates with Microsoft Excel and other things that we have pre-written reports for, lots of things like that. So, as I mentioned in the memo, I do think that this likely costs you an extra couple of $1,000 sort of kind of each year going forward compared to your past environment and maintaining it separately. But frankly, the tip for me on that, or the tipping point, is the additional security that's going to be provided. Right now, we have some holes within our security related to the licensing and how things are updated and how our firewall is updated, that having a product that's supported on a daily basis through Microsoft will help us avoid into the future. So the recommendation is to purchase this and move forward with that. For many of your users, they won't see really a big change at all. But again, I think it's an appropriate time to move based on where we've been and the challenges that we'll face in a new software and updated software environment. I hope that answers.
And the reason we see this, and you detailed this in the memo, in the bill list and on the consent agenda, is because we're retroactively approving it, and had we waited, we would have paid a significant amount more into the next month.
So that is one of the reasons that you're seeing it here. So I did sign the purchase order to move it forward. We budget for this level of activity, whether we're buying Microsoft Office 365 or we're buying some other upgraded software and servers. The cost of this is going to be over $10,000, so it kind of meets that threshold as well. I think it's important to note, and I think I mentioned this in the memo, that this will get spread across a number of different funds, so not just general fund, but all of your enterprise funds will apportion that cost. Sally will apportion that cost based on users attached to what fund or what department. So that's how the cost will be attributed. But really want you to know what's going on and that it's a change for us. And frankly, for many people, it's not a big deal. For us, it's kind of a big deal. We're going to the cloud and doing that kind of stuff, and we've been cloud adverse in the past. So anyway, at least that's how it feels to me.
Thank you.
Any follow-up questions or questions from anybody else? I failed to read through the consent agenda items, so I'll do that now before we move on to the vote. We have a motion and a second. The resolution includes the following budgeted purchases in excess of $10,000. KB cleaning and services for park restroom cleaning, apps for rent, the Microsoft Office 365 licenses. The following appointment, the following employee appointment at the approved wage indicated William Reinbold, Police Patrol Officer, and the schedule of disbursements for February 10th through February 24th, 2022. Any further questions? Yes.
If I may, Madam Mayor, we will have, as you know, last cycle, you had a police officer appointment, and now you have one again tonight if you take action on this resolution. We'll have those officers come for swearing in and kind of a ceremony like we've been doing here in the next cycle or two. So watch for that.
Great. All right. Call the roll, please, if you would.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn.
Aye.
Councilmember Blueflat.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. We have no unfinished business tonight. We'll move on to new business, the first of which is adoption of a resolution authorizing receipt of bids for 2022 fire station project. That memo starts on page 27.
So, Mayor and members, this one, excuse me, is mine to cover. And as you may have noted or may be aware, I didn't ask your architectural firm to come. They've been here quite a little bit, and it's a little bit of a haul for them. But Scott Umhofer from RW Karlstrom, who's your construction manager, is here. If you have any significant questions about how things fit together, there is lots of great information within your packet. But let me hit on 4 or 5 primary points that I think are worthwhile to make sure to accentuate or emphasize again and make available to the public. Give me just a second to get to the right spot. There we go. First of all, the goal is for you to allow us or direct us to solicit bids. A couple of things about that is that, as you know, and included in the packet, are the alternates that we would be looking for as well. And we talked about the process of how that works and where we are financially related to this. There's information included in your packet as to where we are on a total cost of project, at least based on the estimates that we have so far. That's why we go out for bids, so we'll really know for sure, and so that would be coming forward. We still do not have authorization from USDA as a part of your overall financing. We talked about that as short-term construction financing and the mortgage that you would have with USDA. as far as that's concerned, we have to have approval from them before we go out for bids. This doesn't signal that there's a problem. It just takes a while for the wheels to churn and for them to examine some of the information that we provide them. And so I anticipate that within the next week or so. So that's why the resolution indicates that this is contingent upon their approval. The resolution assumes that the alternates that we have listed in the body of the packet, in the body of the memo, are the alternates that are in place. You could certainly tell us you want to do something different than those alternates, but we did have a good discussion about those at the workshop. And at least from my perspective, I left that workshop thinking, well, you guys kind of are good to go with the alternates that have been recommended by the design team and the smaller building committee that's worked on this process. Overall, again, we anticipate a project that's less than $9.4 million, hard and soft costs, land included, and so we hope to maintain that. And again, the financing mechanisms for that will be short-term funding that's required for the construction loan, and then the long-term through USDA. It's important to mention that that USDA interest was capped. I don't know, help me out, Sally. 2 years ago, something like that? We've had it capped for a while, so it's at a very good or low rate of interest for you. And so if interest rates fall at the time that we close, we'll gain the benefit of that. If they go up, we will not go up. We're set, the ceiling is set on that. So I think that's really important as a part of this overall project. There's some great information, I think, included. Certainly the overall cost estimate is included on page 31 within your packet, and that's the best that I can do for you to date. There's a wonderful table or chart that's put together by the R.W. Karlstrom team, and I know it's really, really small, so you can zoom in on that if you want, but really it supposes being out for bids in the very near future, accepting bids sometime in that later March kind of timeline. Construction starting probably in August-ish, give or take a little bit. And then maybe it's later summer of 2023 when you're able to occupy. So that's kind of the general timeline. This sheet that we showed you talks about all kinds of things, not just those 4 or 3 primary time frames, but about when site work begins and tip-up starts and all that kind of stuff. Again, you've talked about this a lot of times, so cut me off if you want to cut me off, but let me mention just a couple of things. This is located at the corner of Broadway and Sunrise. The council acquired that property a few years ago, and so you've been really focusing on this. This was done after a location study was done, and while this wasn't the #1 location, this is what we have called in the top 3, it's really maybe 3.1. It's about 500 yards from the #3 location. It was available for sale. You'll also see included in your packet on page 33 that work has been done and is anticipated that roundabout construction that the council's talked about before. Now, you haven't authorized us to build a roundabout yet, but that was part of the ICE study that you saw a couple of weeks back, and so we've been anticipating in site planning to make sure that's in place. The bids also include 5 bays for equipment and an alternate of a 6th bay, and you'll see that with kind of what I would call the light blue color on the 5 bays, and then on the very north end of the property, at least on this screen, it's really near item number 8, is kind of a yellowish outline, and that would be the additional bay. And so that's included in the price or the cost estimates that we put together to date. And so right now it seems in the realm of affordability, but we'll know once bids come in and all that takes place. As you may recall, you're in a construction management system for this, and so Scott's team will bid out all of these various divisions, and you'll see all those bids back, so you'll be able to select the best bidders, the highest value bidders from all of those. So it's not like you just get one big price. You get a bunch of different things that get added together, and we select, and there's a recommendation made by the team, and you as a council then select what you think is the best bid in each of those divisions and make it go forward. There's been a ton of work that's gone into this. We had a great meeting a couple weeks back at the 95%, so a lot of things are, I think, pretty well nailed down. And I thought, again, you had a lot of discussion at your workshop and a really good discussion about some of the more intricate facets of the building and of the design that have gone in place. And I think we tried to make sure we addressed all of those within the body of the memo. There were 4 primary ones that I think we addressed fairly well. Again, the estimates are based on Scott's team and a lot of history and estimates that they do with contractors, we divide this up so that there is opportunity for local contractors to bid on some of these things. If we just did one general contract and there was only one number, it's a little bit more difficult to ensure an opportunity for local providers to be able to bid. And I can't guarantee that they will. This isn't a project for everyone. Todd's Tile and Flooring probably isn't the right company to do tile and flooring in this. Not everybody's suited for every project. We want to make sure that folks have an opportunity. The resolution's included in your packet. It assumes the alternates based on what we have included in your packet and are articulated there on the list. And I'd stand for any questions that the council might have.
Any questions for Todd? Here.
I am curious about what the bidding environment, or what we anticipate the bidding environment to be like, if that'll be competitive for certain aspects of the project. You know, I've not, in my time on the council, haven't worked with the project of the scale, so sometimes we'll see bids for different, you know, projects that we work on, where we might only have one or two bids, but I imagine this is a different type of project and different type of environment for bidding.
Yeah, I think the world's a different place today than it was a week ago, than it was a year ago, than it was 3 years ago, for sure. And so the team has had discussions about this. I've talked with Scott and his team and Dan Thompson, who's been working on this from Scott's team quite a little bit. I mean, there'll be some areas where you'll only get one bid, and there'll be some of those divisions where you have multiple bids. And that's just how it will work, I think. But this is a good project. Your funding is secure, and so that makes it a good project. Contractors don't have to worry about whether they're going to get paid or when they're going to get paid. Those are important things as well. There are projects that are big on this scale or maybe a little bit bigger within our region, but this feels like a good project, so we'll see. I wish I had a great answer for you, and certainly that's why we bid them, right, to really know what the price is and who's interested in it. But certainly we'll make sure that interested or potentially interested parties know that this is out there and that there's an opportunity to gain some work and bid on it. And so that's, I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's what I got.
We don't all have crystal balls.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Thank you. It's helpful to know what to expect.
Yeah, yeah, we feel really good. It's a great project and a community service kind of project. And so there are construction companies, craftspeople, tradespeople that are very interested in projects like this, where they can do, you know, make money, but also do something in the community. So that's good.
Thank you.
Emily?
Yeah. First, just a thank you to all the staff work and other people who've worked on this project. I know it's a lot of effort that's gone into this. And I appreciate also that the packet outlines that there was discussion. I know as a group we talked about the various, you know, things maybe we'd like to see in the final proposal. And I appreciate some of these explanations, like the tank versus tankless and the environmental concerns and the geothermal. But the one that I would still really like to consider as an alternate, I know there's this list of alternates 1 through 6, and as maybe a 7th alternate bid, I would really still like the staff to consider bidding out an alternate for an electric water heater. I think since it's come up as a council, we've talked before about a move toward electric water heaters in the community. I think it would be a more, just in my opinion, it's a more forward-thinking. This building, you know, our current fire hall is 100 years old. If, you know, we want this building to be a forward-thinking building that's going to last many, many decades. And so I just, especially since it's not a decision at this point, it's just asking for that alternate bid, I would really encourage us to consider that as another alternate. That's my piece.
So I just have a follow-up question to that. Item number 2 on page 28 about gas versus electric. Do you have areas of concern about that sort of?
I read through this and I understand that it's likely to be a higher cost to go with the electric versus gas, but to me, in this case, cost isn't the only factor to consider. I really want to consider that environmental impact as well. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, no, I was kind of just wondering a little bit where
I was coming from. Yeah, I just think that it makes sense to consider it as an option, in my view.
So, Mayor members, if I can, just interject the process for that, because that is not part of the team's recommendation, but the process for that is that a modification to the resolution can be made saying we want you to do that, and then the team will go back and make sure that that happens as a part of the bids. It's not that these will hit the street tomorrow. We still have to wait for USDA review and approval. That's probably not an issue, at least from my perspective, that USDA would say, we want another 3 weeks to review electric water heaters. It probably doesn't cause a time constraint or anything like that. So it really is up to the council. Again, it's not part of what the staff's recommendation is for this, but we serve at the pleasure of the council, and it's not irrational at all.
So if Emily wanted to make it a motion, make that motion to revise the resolution, she could do so, and if there was a second, we could
Yep,
discuss and then have a vote.
you bet.
Are you looking to make that?
If we're ready for that, I'd be willing to do that. Sure, then I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution with an amendment to include an alternate number 7 to seek a bid for an electric water heater in lieu of a gas water heater.
Second.
All right, we're discussing Emily's amendment to the memo. Although I think what we really need to do is revise the resolution.
So how that motion was made, Madam Mayor, is that motion was made with the resolution that you see included on page 41. Let me make sure I have my numbers right. 41 with an amendment already in it. So the resolution is on the floor amended.
That is what I did, is that okay?
That is what you did.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a second. Is there discussion?
Just a point of clarification, if folks want to pass the resolution, including an alternate for electric water heater, then the appropriate vote is yes. If you want to pass the resolution as is written or in some other form, then the vote is no, if that makes sense.
And because it appears in the list of alternates, it would not bind us to going with that for sure. It's just among the things that we would consider moving forward.
Correct. And so when the bids go out, there would be an alternate, just like there is for certain kinds of tile. And so you would have an opportunity to compare the price of the gas installation versus the electric installation.
Any questions? Or? All right, if we're ready to vote on the amended resolution that appears on page 41, resolution authorizing receipt of bids for the 2022 fire station project.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Grant,
Aye.
Councilmember Boozlett,
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Thank you. Up next, we are going to discuss adoption of a resolution approving engineering services for Broadway Avenue, Sunrise Drive, Roundabout. We've got Jeff here to speak to us about that.
Madam Mayor, if I can, before Jeff gets going to talk about this, I will mention that Pete, along with 2 of your council members, are out of town today. They are at the APPA rally. So that's why Pete is untethered in Washington, D.C., and more importantly, Jeff is untethered here, and so can really say anything that he wants about this. So I appreciate that, Jeff. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Council members, Mayor. Here tonight to present the proposal for the Broadway Avenue Sunrise Drive intersection improvements. As part of those improvements, we're also looking at improving about 500 feet north of the intersection along Sunrise Drive. That would include that portion along the fire hall that's currently rural. It would be urban with curb and gutter and everything once done. So the city received, this was this last year, 2021, they found out that they'd received 1.25 million of LRIP, which is Local Road Improvement Program financing, so for this project. And as part of that, the improvements would include, based on what the ICE study that was recently completed, looked at a variety of different improvements to the intersection to help improve flow of traffic at the intersection, to improve vehicle, pedestrian safety, vehicle, pedestrian movement, and put a benefit to cost ratio to that. After the intersection control evaluation or the ICE study recommended a roundabout for the intersection based on a cost to benefit ratio or benefit to cost ratio that was higher than anything else. So although the intersection is operating generally well today, other than the PM peak when school is out, the traffic can back up 20, 30 vehicles. It's anticipated that in the future traffic will increase with growth on the west side of the city. With the new fire hall there also, it seems prudent to move ahead with intersection improvement at this time, simply because one, there is RFP financing of $1.25 million, and then two, with the fire hall being constructed here, finished in 2023, at least it's looking like right now, and that's the goal I know as a city. The goal would be to construct the roundabout or the intersection improvements in 2022. That would prevent this intersection from being down, I guess, when the fire hall was open. So you wouldn't want to open a new fire hall and then have the intersection down and having to detour traffic. So at least that's proposed to happen. And so that's why the project's been proposed to improve. It's proposed to make the improvements here in 2022. Also, this intersection is proposed to be used by the MnDOT when they do the 2023 improvement project on the south side of St. Peter. That's the portion that'll be constructing 2 left turn lanes on Trunk Highway 22 southbound, and also constructing a restricted crossing U-turn or R-cut at 169 and Highway 99. So during that project, they're proposing to use Nicollet County Road 5, which is that westerly leg of this intersection, or Sunrise Drive, Broadway Avenue to detour that traffic. So traffic that's coming in westbound and going eastbound on 99 would come in through town using CASA 5, Nicollet County Road 5, Broadway Avenue. So that would happen also in 2023, so that'd be the goal, is to get this constructed prior to that detour occurring, because the plan was just to use that intersection for that. The overall project cost estimate is around $1.3 to $1.5 million. We're currently proposing to, I guess, begin, if you're the authorized design, we begin that right away so that bids could be received yet this spring. May, our goal is just to have bids received in May. That would allow for construction to begin once school is out. That intersection is used by quite a bit of traffic, primarily school vehicles, students, during the school year. So ultimately the goal is to do as much of that construction while school is out of session during the summer months, and so that it's ready to be opened when school starts again in the fall of 2022. So with that, our proposal included the topographical survey, preliminary design, final design, lighting design for the intersection. We also are looking at a right-of-way plat, because there will be some right-of-way necessary in the southwest, the northwest, and the southeast corners of the intersection to account for that roundabout construction. There'll be a few parcels that are needed there, and a right-of-way plats is probably the best way to get that done. We've done that in a number of different projects around the city, and that allows the city to negotiate then with those property owners. I think the northwest property owner, the northwest corner, will be the most difficult, but to allow those people, the city to negotiate.
That's the fire hall location for those of you that are directionally challenged.
But no, that'll allow the city to negotiate with those property owners on a proper sale price. So with that, I guess we're proposing to do that in design bidding and go through bids, receive bids. I think it was for like $139,500, not to exceed amount, $139,500. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mayor, members, before you get going, if I can, the resolution's on page 45, but we did have one typographical error on the first page of the memo. That's kind of my fault. I had kind of a slippery finger there. We said that the amount that we received from LRIP funding was $1.125 million, and that is not correct. It's $1,250,000. So just to clarify, we talked about it correctly, but wanted to make sure that everybody knew where we were at exactly with that.
Thanks for that, Kirk. have questions for Jeff or for Todd? Yes.
Utility design over and above this yet too, or not?
No, that's included. Utility design would be included, like storm sewer water, sanitary sewer, any of that, that's required for the intersection improvements. and stuff like
MSA
that.
picks that up?
MSA would not, I didn't talk about that, but MSA, we'd be utilizing MSA, or at least that's what we're proposed to use municipal state aid funds for the portions that are not LRIP eligible. MSA will cover storm sewer, roadway improvements, sidewalk, curb and gutter, that sort of thing, but they will not, MSA will not cover, and LRIP will not cover sanitary sewer and water. So those would be covered by local city utilities. Good question, yeah.
Sherry?
And the LRIP dollars don't cover the planning and engineering costs. That's why we use the MSA funds for that.
That is correct.
Okay.
LRIP only covers the construction costs. It's a reimbursement type program, so once the city expends those funds, or expends those costs, they would be reimbursed.
Okay.
But engineering is one of those that's not eligible for LRIP. Instead, that would be something that the city would at least propose to cover through MSA, a municipal state aid.
Okay, thank you. Thought I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
We're still talking with the county and coordinating with the county. The county board hasn't made any decisions yet about their participation.
That's correct.
Okay. And we anticipate that to come in the future so that it doesn't delay. I suppose we're,
Well, here, I mean, from my chair, here's, I think, where we're at. Certainly, we're going to be continuing to talk with them, and I know Pete has had a number of meetings with the county engineer. We have a city-county liaison committee meeting this week, and so that will be one of the topics for sure. And so we'll continue to have that discussion. It's, when we talked about this as a part of the workshop, because of the importance of continuing to make this move relative to the fire station construction and relative to the DOT detour, and frankly, trying to keep it in that time frame of avoiding as much school overlap as we can, my goal will be to continue to keep rolling, and we'll try and negotiate something with the county on the fly. Again, that's solely from the city administrator's perspective. When they looked to build a roundabout out by the new high school, we didn't even second guess them. We thought that was the right choice, and we contributed our share based on the number of legs. It really would be, at least from my chair, that they would do the same in return. It's our goal to work together for the community. And I know that people in town not only pay city taxes, but they pay county taxes, and it's our hope that the county would see the opportunity that is here. Certainly no one expected to be doing this now. We really didn't even expect to get this grant funding this cycle. We were putting it in to have what we feel is a better chance in future cycles, but we got it. And so it's really a substantial benefit to the community overall, not just the city, but to county taxpayers to be able to utilize those grant funds. So that we'd hope that they'd see the wisdom in that and work with us. And so we'll continue to work with them in that direction, I think.
more will be revealed.
Yeah. But we want to try and stick with this time for the reasons that Jeff outlined. So that's part of the work that's necessary.
Thank you.
Any further questions? The resolution before us is on page 45, retaining Bolton and Menk to provide engineering services for a 2022 Broadway and Sunrise intersection improvement project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Ram,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Mayor Renewal,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Next up, adoption of a resolution approving execution of a renewal license with Evangelical Lutheran Good Samaritan Society for space at the community center. The memo begins on page 46 of the packet.
So, Mayor members, the folks from Good Sam have been tenants of yours for a few years now, and they're located on the second floor on the hallway, the main hallway on the second floor. They've met the user criteria that was established when this building was built, now almost 20 years ago, which includes them being a not-for-profit community service, and they're really focused out of this office on opportunity for home health care for seniors and others, folks with disabilities. And so that's really what this office, so it meets that criteria quite readily. The lease that you have in front of you that they've agreed to and their corporate has agreed to would be through April of 2025. It includes a 3% escalator clause in each of the 12-month periods, so each year of this, which is very similar to what you've done, substantially similar to what you've done for all the other tenants located in this building. Their monthly rent would end up being, it's starting at about $1,730 a month up to, at the end in 2025, about $1,830 per month. And again, falls in line with the relative square foot costs that we see. There's a little variation in that based on some quality and number of windows and that kind of thing, but they got a really nice spot, and so this has worked very well for them and I think for the community. The information is included in your packet, and the recommendation is that you direct authorize the mayor and the city administrator to enter the lease with Good Sam, and again, that's included in your packet.
Any questions for Todd about this matter?
They're good tenants, good stewards of the space, so we've had no challenges or difficulties with them.
Doing good things.
The resolution appears on page 53 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve the resolution approving execution of a lease with the Evangelical Lutheran Good Samaritan Society, GSS HCBS LLC for space in the community center?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Ram?
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefett?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, page 50, beginning on page 54 of the packet, we have a memo regarding the adoption of a resolution approving execution of an agricultural lease with Brett Annexton for city-owned property.
So, Madam Mayor, members, this is Jim's. So Jim
Thank
is
you.
here tonight to talk
Thank
about
you.
this one.
Back in the fall of 2013, the city bought about 75 acres west of town. They provided a map that kind of shows you where it was. And what happened with that tract is the Fort Road divided it and put a triangle on the south side of the road. The city, and after the city bought their 75 acres, looking to develop a city park, the school district purchased a 60-acre tract to the north. And since 2000, I think they bought it in like 2014. Since then, the city and the school have been working together to develop jointly a city park and school. For the first 2 years, while the school was getting their building plans and all things determined, Brent Annexted leased the entire tract. Then starting after the school developed and started building on their project, since then Brent has been renting the triangle tract, which is south of the Fort Road. He's been, from my perspective, he's been a very conscientious steward of the land. I think he's done a good job. We hear farm rent ag prices go all over the board, and they're hard. One issue with this is it's sandy soil, light loam soil, and it's not as productive as when you get on top of the ridge. So the values here are somewhat lower because of the sandy soil and the chance of drought conditions. I have spoken with a tenant who does rent land in the river valley, and basically what he's told me is he felt that the price we're getting is a very fair price. He thought, if anything, the city's maybe getting a little more than what other places would rent for. Grant has done a good job, and I'd recommend that we accept the proposal. If you have any questions, I'd sure like to try to answer them.
Mayor, members, if I could just add two small items. Typically, we've done a year-by-year lease, but at the suggestion of the council last cycle, this is a 2-year lease. The council suggested that last time we went forward. And this does cover your costs. Jim has talked, really well before about our goal is to make sure that the property is taken care of appropriately, and that if it was not for this lease, we'd have additional costs in maintaining, keeping weeds down, those type of things. So it's worked out well for you in the past. There's an out clause within the lease that Jim's put together, so if something would develop there. But I want to talk about that development just one little quick bit, which is that as Jim articulated the history, one of the goals of this parcel was that if there's an opportunity for additional recreational facilities, that could be a co-op between the city and the school district and potentially Gustavus. That's really what this property is kind of set aside for, that potential activity. So for those of you that are new, maybe haven't heard that before, that's really what previous councils have told us and what we've tried to stick to.
Well, thanks. I think I'll speak for myself before I move forward to questions, which is I think the 2-year lease is sensible. So I'm glad we decided to pursue that this time around. Any questions? Emily?
First of all, just saying I don't have a problem with the lease as presented, and I really appreciate that Mr. Annexted has been a very good steward of this land. But just from my own, thinking about this property, I see it and I hear Mr. Brandt talk about, it's sandy soil and maybe drought considerations. Well, there's so many native plants that would fit the bill that would probably do really well there. And so I see that property as beneficial to the community as maybe a restored prairie or partially, that kind of thing. So maybe something to consider down the road as a, being a steward of that land in a different way, or partially. And then I had a question regarding pesticides and herbicides. I saw in the memo that he has to submit when he uses any chemicals to the city. My question was, are there any chemicals that are banned from usage, and what does that process look like?
Well, I think the Department of Ag has a control on what chemicals can be used on that track. I don't know specific ones. I know the reason that clause was added is years ago there was a chemical, and the name escaped me, that would cause carryover. So if it was put on corn, cause carryover next year that would cut down bean production. So that was one reason that was there, so that if it changes to a different farmer, he knows what chemicals were there, so he doesn't plant a bean crop and have it destroyed because of carryover from pesticides.
Our process would be is that if we had a concern and reviewed something that was a concern, we have an agronomist that we use that helps us with both fertilizer and herbicide application on fields. And that's been just a substantial benefit for us over the last couple of years because it's helped us reduce our costs overall and the amount of stuff that we put on the soil. And so that's where we'd go to have a review if we had a concern and seek his more learned advice on that issue.
Great. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? The resolution before us is on page 60, calling for authorization of execution of a 2-year lease of Outlot A, Magner Farm, second subdivision, by and between the city of St. Peter and Brett R. Annexted. Is there a motion to approve?
I would just mention one other thing. Again, you see the signed lease, but he also dropped off checks at Jim's office,
Yeah.
so we've already been.
We've been paid.
Yeah, if you enter it, then we're paid, so we've already done that, so just so that you're aware.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
Well, that was our final piece of new business. We are on to the reports section of our agenda. And I don't have anything to report city business-wise, and normally I think it's not our business to be in the world sphere, but I think I'd be remiss in not saying that I'm thinking about the people of Ukraine right now, and Minnesotans of Ukrainian descent and Ukrainian immigrants in our community. It's a very different world that we're in right now, and so my thoughts are both on that.
Madam Mayor, if I can, I'll go on to the 2 primary reports that I have. One of which I have a guest here. So Joel Schmidt. Joel is your Public Works Superintendent. So Joel's going to come up and he's going to talk a little bit about the Eab Grant that you received through the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Joel, again, is your Maintenance Superintendent. So if you haven't met him before, Joel's been with us now, my gosh, How long is it, Joel?
6 months.
6 months, so he had cleared probation just a little bit ago, so he's like raring to go and visit with you. He was the primary architect of drafting much of the grant application and is one of the folks that's really charged with making sure that we fulfill the grant, and it goes for good stuff related to EAB. So Joel, if you would, take it away, introduce yourself just a little bit and talk
Sure.
about the grant and what you're doing with it.
Yeah, again, like Todd said, Joel Schmidt, Maintenance Superintendent. And the Emerald Ash Borer grant that we applied for in January, we were awarded in February, or February 14th. Right now, it's in the process of, we have to send it back to them, the DNR, they sign it, and then we get it back and sign it, and then they sign it again, and that takes up till May before it's actually in force. So a little bit about the Emerald Ash Borer, as most of you probably know, but EAB was detected in Nicollet County in November of last year. So as part of the management plan that the city adopted in 2018, we chemically treat healthy trees and remove unhealthy trees and replant new trees in their place. So this grant really allows us to increase the amount of trees we can plant each year by up to 150%. So it really gets us to the final goal a lot sooner. And this will help us purchase over 500 trees in the watering bags and the tree guards. So, and then all the work needs to be completed by June 30th of 2025.
So you have a really well thought out, detailed plan. There's a classification of ash trees that's done, has been done within St. Peter using a lot of the University of Minnesota work and study that's been done. And so Joel's in charge of that and making sure that we're trying to get it. And Joel, you said this doesn't get us to do new things, but this helps us move quicker through that
Right,
plan.
Right. It just allows us to apply more resources towards it faster. Because the EAB is here, and the sooner we can get replanting and reforesting the urban forest, the better we are.
Joel, we haven't seen EAB in St. Peter. It's been in the western part of the county, but it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and even the MDA, the Department of Agriculture, assumes it's here already, assumes it's pretty much throughout the entire state, it's just not confirmed.
Yeah. So you've got a great plan and great work getting, well, $123,000 in grant funds to work on this is not a little amount of money. That's fantastic. Any other questions for Joel about the plan or the grant or what we've got going on in the near term?
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for your work on the grant. I have a question just in turn. I know we have a plan for boulevard trees and city, trees on city property. What will be the advice for the private trees, and will there be enough services for citizens to utilize for, especially if they want to save their trees and inject them, or will there be, we anticipate having some sort of city service that citizens can pay for, extra for?
So as we said earlier, Joel's been with us 6 months, so I don't know if we've talked about that much, Joel, since you've been here.
So what the city has done in this aspect has been helping with identifying and finding resources for private citizens, or for private property, sorry, not actually going out and doing the work on private
Right.
property. So we've contained the actual staff hours and time to public property.
So what might that look like? Are you typically reaching out, or do you anticipate reaching out to the citizen, or do you think it'll go both ways?
Both ways. I would think mostly from the citizen to us. But that's not to say you drive around town, if you're doing work here and you notice a tree that's obviously having issues and it's an ash tree, then we would absolutely contact that citizen. It's really, it's about minimizing and mitigating that spread throughout the community, not just on boulevards or in
Right.
parks.
Right.
If I can, one of our original concepts had been that we would contract for more inoculations, tree inoculations. That was at a time when there weren't very many companies that were doing that. Now there's a lot more companies that have gotten into that. So there are choices with private property owners related to that there weren't before. In addition to that, we've got the method, the equipment to be able to do the inoculations of the city-owned trees. And so as soon as we get a forester that's certified back online, as you know, we're in the hunt for a new forester. We had our forester resign. And so as soon as we can meet that threshold, we'll continue with kind of the adjusted process of our staff doing the work on the city-owned trees and boulevards. But certainly anybody that calls and have a question, we're going to try and help them out and send them to resources that can help them out as well.
One more question, if I may. Does the grant enable us to save more trees? Or are we really sticking to the quality, measurement of the trees?
Yeah, I think we continue to be of the mind, based on the recommendations from University of Minnesota Extension and others, that our goal continues to be, frankly, to pick certain trees that are significant for inoculation, but trees that don't score above a 4 or a 5 we're going to try and remove those trees. Our best opportunity to save as many trees as possible is to eliminate the weak trees where emerald ash borer tend to enclave or tend to congregate in. And so when they've seen this in other communities and they map it out, it's like neighborhoods of emerald ash borer. And so what we can do to eliminate the potential for run-down neighborhoods of trees can significantly impact the amount of infestation that you get. I hope that answers.
It does,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a curiosity, what types of trees are you going to be planting?
I have a list. One of the requirements of the grant is to plant a certain diversity. So a family of tree can be no more than 15%, and then no more than 10% of any genus, and then 5% of any species. So actually the initial request we made was the DNR asked us to modify that and change some of those species. So there's everything from birch trees, ironwood, bur oaks, the quaking aspen and linden trees. There's many different types of trees, and that's all in an effort to diversify the urban forest.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Any concern about Japanese beetle impact on linden trees, or you can try to choose a variety that's more resistant to the...
Yes, so
Not one
the,
bug is another?
right, so, and that also comes down to the 5% or less of each species, just to make sure, because some of these trees on this list are gonna have a problem down the road. It's almost a guarantee. So if we could keep those numbers as low as possible, it makes it a little easier to manage.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Joel, thanks for being here.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the next one that I have has to do with the redistricting plan and discussion. And so there's some additional information included in your packet that relates to this. And as members may recall at your last workshop, you saw a lot of information about the rules and the time frames and what the process looks like, all of that kind of stuff. And so I won't go into that very much, but I do want to mention that at that time the council discussed very clearly that you wanted to make sure that not only did staff make every opportunity, but you had other opportunities to see maps and review information and provide public, the public an opportunity for input, whether it's at a meeting like a council meeting or a workshop, or as we've mentioned in the hot sheet after your discussion, that it's the plan for the council to take action on redistricting at its March 14th meeting. So certainly anyone can attend any of those meetings in advance or at that meeting. And as you know, at all of our meetings, we have a time for visitors who want to talk about things that may not be on the agenda or things that are on the agenda. So again, want to promote that. And you'll see, of course, in the packet, which is online and in this packet, actually four different options. So as you know, at that workshop, the staff provided 3 different options related to redistricting. And Councilmember Pettis did some math. He's really good at that, and came up with an idea that made it within, I can't remember, those was 8 people. 4 people, really a flop of 4. And so that's option 4 that's listed within your packet, and you seem to gravitate towards that option. But certainly there are many, many different ways to provide opportunity to show the maps, to redistrict and move forward. But again, I wanted to take this opportunity, as you've asked, to promote that this is out there, that anybody can go online and look at these maps. Here's an example of option 1, Ward 1 and Ward 2, where the population difference is, around 500-ish or so. Here's another one, which was option 2, which reduced that amount. Here's option 3 that you saw. And then we have a map that shows option 4 We have a nice pretty one that was drawn up after that time that, again, is 8 or a flip-flop of 4. So wanted you to know that that was out there, and encourage anybody that has questions or suggestions or comments to send us an email or give us a call, and we'll be happy to try and work with them to show what we have going on, or certainly are open to other ideas, but the goal continues to be for the council to take action on the 14th of March so that you meet the end of March deadline so other folks can do their work related to redistricting. Madam Mayor, that's all I have for reports.
There's no questions for Todd. We'll have, next up on the agenda, executive session, and we have a resolution calling for that on page 65 of the packet.
Mayor, members, if I can, I don't believe that we will come back into open session to take any action other than adjournment. So we have a room, the Traverse to Sioux room is downstairs that we have, so that way everybody can pick up their stuff. But again, I only expect that we would come back to provide for an adjournment. There's not really action that's necessary this evening, but we want to make sure you're informed on this item, and it's allowed for under state statute. Oh, yeah, thanks, Barb. This is relating to the offer for, and counter offers related to the purchase of real estate. And so under Minnesota statute 13D.05, a closed session is allowed as we negotiate price on real estate. And this is a location at 101 North Front Street. This is what some people call the old creamery, what a lot of people today know as Cambria University. That's the location.
The resolution calling for a closed session is on page 65. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Rank,
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenthal. Aye.
We will adjourn to executive session. The time is 7:57 p.m.
So I think the door is unlocked down there, folks. If you want to give me just a couple minutes to pick up the computer, Barb, if you'll pick up the projector, that would be great. Thanks, everyone.